Afternoon, America. Brian James Blem here on. Welcome you back to another episode of What the Fuck's Up. What do I want to talk about today? Centralization versus decentralization in our elections, because the Arizona legislature is currently trying to reform Arizona's broken system of elections. The House and the Senate have both worked and passed out a reform measure that was then sent to Governor Katie Hobbs. Governor Katie Hobbs will veto it, of course, because she does not want election reform. She wants to keep elections that allow her and people like the AG, Chris Mays, to maintain their hold on power in the state of Arizona as they work this absolutely crazy and insane strategy to derail the Trump administration at a time when he is showing the American people that their government, especially the federal government, is corrupt out the wazoo. The information that's been coming out is just somebody turned on the fire hose, and all of California's water, what used to be water, shooting out of it, leaving them dry for their fires or whatever. But the information coming out on these audits that Elon Musk and the federal is doing of the federal government is just astounding, folks. The amount of people, or the number of people that are becoming millionaires, right? Children of former presidents getting millions of dollars from USAID. USAID funding, it's now being released, regime change activities within the United States of America. I have been talking about this for a very, very long time, folks. And this is exactly what happens when you centralize power in a small group of people, and that's what took place during the 20th century. Well, we're in the 21st century now, and things are swinging back. And so our elections, how do we decentralize our elections, right? What did we used to do? The ultimate form of decentralization, right? The federal government has those powers given to it by the United States Constitution. All other powers are reserved to the states and the people, respectively. All right. And so elections primarily dealt with at the state and the local level, because that is a state power. And our elections in this country have historically been pushed all the way down to our smallest political subdivision in the United States, which is known as a precinct. Yes, each one of these little red geographic areas is a precinct. I know you've seen this map before if you watch the show. And so you would go in your precinct to a local school, synagogue, church, or other government building, or wherever they had a polling place set up in your precinct. You would go on election day, show your ID, and you would cast your ballot, and they would count them at that local level, right? So you might have a couple thousand people that live in your voters that live in your precinct. And so maybe 8 to 10 people working the precinct election that day. And so by the end of the day, when they close the polls, they then count all the votes received. And then they telephone their results or email their results or whatever, send their results to a central processing facility in the county in which they are situated. The county then adds all of those up, and voila, you have election results. This was a beautiful system, folks, because it's very, very hard to cheat. It's almost impossible to game this system, so much so that you are going to determine the outcome of, say, the 2022 Attorney General's race, where Chris Mays purportedly won by just over 200 and some odd votes. And so very, very, very difficult to game the system in this type of election, because the centralized authority, the elections department, doesn't know what the numbers are. They don't know what they are coming in. Voila. What does Arizona do? What did Maricopa County do? We're done with this map. We're not going to conduct elections on that basis anymore. And so what especially Maricopa County relies on is a very, very extremely highly centralized process where you can go to one of, however many vote centers they have, maybe up to 200 vote centers they have open at any given time, 250. You can go cast a ballot sometime before the election, and then your ballot is sort of hidden away in this centralized repository, right, known as the Maricopa County Elections Department, and they hold on to all of these ballots. And then the other, well over 80% of Maricopa County residents vote by mail, right? That's a significant amount, folks. That's well over 2 million ballots that are then brought in. The people don't really get to see very much how they're brought in. They just pick them up from these drop boxes, or the Postal Service delivers them to Runbeck Election Services, another part of the centralization of the elections in Maricopa County and other regions throughout the United States, right? And so everything goes through this little centralized facility. And then what happens, right? Well, you get the federal government that gets involved after Donald Trump won the first election, and they start sending CISA, Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency, team members down here to work in these little county departments. And then they also, if you include Runbeck in here, I'm sure they got their people working inside of Runbeck as well. And so they very highly centralized these processes, moved tens of thousands of people out of them. And so we have this system where, the mail-in ballots, they send them out. You have this diffusion of the system as these millions of mail-in ballots are flooding communities around Arizona and other parts of the United States, Philadelphia, other localities that use mail-in ballots as their primary method of conducting elections, right? And so who knows if they, once they leave the government's control, who knows who's actually voting them. And that's why the signature on that ballot affidavit envelope becomes so important, because under Arizona law, and this is a law I think needs to be changed, the only identification required for vote by mail is that signature. That's it. You don't have to send in a copy of your driver's license or anything along those lines. And so they all come back to these very centralized locations where Runbeck and Maricopa County process them, and then they count them, and then they tell us who the winner is, right? They've flooded us out of the system. Well, these centralized processes, whenever you centralize a process, you remove people from that process, thus necessitating fewer people to actually run the centralized process. And so it becomes much, much easier for these people to hide information from the voters. And then you get people like Stephen Richer, right? Stephen Richer, thank you for coming out of the closet finally and showing the state of Arizona your true allegiances have always lied with Katie Hobbs, the Attorney General in Arizona, and the current Secretary of State, States United, and Mark Elias. Your alliances have always truly been with the left. I've known that forever, especially the national security left, right? And so thank you for coming out of the closet, joining these folks in their endeavors to destroy Donald Trump and MAGA, because that's what you've done, since you arrived in the state of Arizona. And so you get people like Stephen Richer then that work to destroy MAGA and deny, you're down here, the public, right? So you have been removed from this process. You are completely isolated from this process, unless you're one of the few people who get to go work there, and then you just get to see a teeny little piece of it. You don't get to see the entirety of the election. And it makes it very, very easy for people to control the outcome of an election. When the public wants to see records regarding their elections, the government very, very loudly has been saying, no, you cannot have these records. It's actually getting worse in Maricopa County as the new Board of Supervisors, the old outgoing Board of Supervisors, in conjunction with the outgoing recorder, put new policies and procedures in place that dictate that Justin Heap, as Maricopa County's recorder, will have absolutely zero responsibility for elections in Maricopa County. It all falls on the Board of Supervisors now to run the totality of our elections, except, of course, for voter registration. And then, Justin Heap plays no role. They also made Justin Heap the go-to individual for public records requests, but with respect to election-related requests, they have to be approved first by the board before Mr. Heap can give any documents out. And so it would appear that they have also kept all of that power over Maricopa County election-related documents balled up within their own puny little hands. And so, fortunately, Donald Trump has put all of these CISA employees on administrative leave and sort of severed that national security link from that respect. But we also have, the Attorney General in the state of Arizona. We know she's doing the bidding of States United and the national security leftist elite. And she's not actually working for the people in the state of Arizona, who, by the way, polls show really appreciate what Donald Trump is doing with uncovering all of this fraud in the United States federal government. And so what we need to do to take our country back, folks, to get rid of what I call managed democracy, we need to take our elections back. We need to have elections on a precinct basis where the citizens go in their local community and vote. And then they, members of their own local community working in that precinct, tabulate those votes and send the results to the central processing facility so that we can learn who has won our elections in a timely fashion, and so that we can reinvigorate the American Republic by bringing our citizens back into this process rather than shutting them out. We do it with jury duty. Why don't we do it with elections? It should be simple to do. The government's now complaining, we don't have enough government facilities for polling places in every precinct, but it doesn't have to be in a government facility, folks. It could be at a supermarket, it could be at a school, it could be at a church, it could be wherever. And so let's open our elections back up to the people so that the people can participate in the process, and let's take our country back. With that, I say peace.